We now return to The Real Story. Here's your host, Jeanne Ives.
All right. I have just enough time to introduce my next guest after this break. It is Ryan Young. He is a senior economist with the Competitive Enterprise Institute, and we're going to talk about regulation and what the Trump administration has been trying to do with that. And then I'm going to query him because he actually lives in Illinois. He lives in DuPage County. I'm going to say, hey, can you do something at the state level? And I'm going to see what he thinks about some of these bills that passed recently that overregulate in Illinois. So we'll be right back. Don't move the dial. This is Jeanne Ives with The Real Story. And welcome. Thanks for joining me this Sunday night. Happy Father's Day to all those fathers out there. You make it right in the family. You sure do. Families need their fathers. That is for sure. If we had fathers in the families more, we'd have a much better environment. But you can't say that if you're a Republican. And, you know, I tried to say that. Oh, boy, did I get shot down when I ran for governor. All right, that's a whole other topic. Okay, but let's turn to the topic at hand. This is just, I mean, everybody knows that Illinois is overtaxed and overregulated. I think that is like a well-known bug. It's actually not a bug; it's a feature. If you are a union worker, that's a feature. That you want the regulation so that you can make sure that nobody else competes against you. So, in Illinois, overregulation is a feature, not a bug. It's something that they like to do. That's right. And to make matters worse, I found this was very interesting. So Illinois Policy article wrote this just June 12th. Lawmakers just passed 2 bills making Illinois even worse for business. You think that they're out of ideas, and then they actually are not out of ideas. Yeah. Illinois is one of the worst states in the country for business, they write, largely because of taxes and regulations. But state lawmakers are trying to make it worse with 2 bills headed to Governor J.B. Pritzker's desk. Senate Bill 328 would make it easier to sue out-of-state businesses merely for being registered in Illinois. It's a terrible bill. Senate Bill 1976 would prevent Illinois businesses from benefiting from any federal rules easing workplace regulations. That's right. More about that bill. If Illinois lawsuits climate weren't enough to discourage businesses operating in the state, lawmakers passed another bill that would prevent federal reductions in workplace regulations from taking effect. SB 1976 would require state agencies to maintain the current level of workplace regulation established under federal wage and hour laws, federal coal mine safety law, and under the Occupational Safety and Health Act as of April 28, 2025, even if the federal government reduces those regulations. Well, guess what the Trump administration is attempting to do? Reduce regulation. Well, here to discuss that with me is Ryan Young. He's the senior economist at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. He specializes in trade, regulation, and other issues. And I noticed he was the featured employee on the CEI's website for this month, and he lives nearby in Elmhurst, Illinois. Ryan, thanks so much for joining me on The Real Story.
Thanks for having me on, Jeannie.
So what do you think of that? Because, I mean, you guys just wrote about how the EPA proposes a repeal of Biden's Clean Power Plan 2.0. I mean, this is one of the lead articles on your website. It just came out. And then you've got Illinois saying, oh, no, it doesn't matter what the federal government does. Whatever rules were in place April 28th, 2025, they're staying.
Yeah, one of the arguments we're trying to make is the argument for federalism. So regulations are coming out of Washington these days, more than 3,000 out of every year. But some states are according to the Market Center, Illinois is the 4th most regulated state in the entire country, with 282,000 individual.
Hey, Ryan, you're breaking up a little bit. Should we try and reconnect here?
I apologize for that.
Oh, there we go. Okay, got you now. All right, good.
Illinois has more than 280,000 regulations on the books, and apparently they're resisting the urge to lighten the load a little bit. And well, if you're looking business, Wisconsin and Indiana and other states are looking a lot nicer.
Well, they certainly are. I mean, I was actually the minority spokesperson on the Labor and Commerce Committee. We called it the Labor, not Commerce Committee, and it was one additional regulation after another. And I used to tell people, look, the Democrat legislators down there, they think that they know your business better than you do. They think there's nothing in your business that they can't regulate. And they also believe that you're a bad actor when it comes to your employees. And so they need to protect their employees all the time from the employer. And so, I mean, you guys have written about the minimum wage laws, for example, which, Illinois famously passed, and then Chicago, of course, upped it to raising the minimum wage first to 15. And then now the Chicago minimum wage is set to increase again July 1st, along with other changes for paid time off. So it was at, it's going to be $16.60. That's far above the federal minimum wage. And the tipped wage is also going up. They can earn $12.62 per hour, but it's going to increase 8% per year until it reaches Chicago's standard hourly. So all of these things, and CEI makes the argument too that this is it's really hurting the employees more than anything.
Yeah, it is. Minimum wages sound great on paper. If some people aren't making a lot of money, just pass a law giving them a raise. It's simple. Mm-hmm. The problem is that there are trade-offs. Anytime you raise the minimum wage, well, people make cash wages and they make non-cash wages. For example, you'll see people's hours getting cut, or maybe you'll see fewer breaks and vacations. You might see employee discounts go away for employees who receive benefits. Maybe their health insurance plan isn't as nice anymore. All these trade-offs are baked into any minimum wage increase. So you have to be very careful with what you might get one here, also take this between employees and employers as far as that mix looks like.
Yeah. So you guys are working diligently at the federal level. Do you see any movement in Trump? Was his? I think I read something where you said the DOGE effort wasn't effective because they went about it the wrong way. But do you feel like there's going to be some movement over the next 4 years?
I hope so. It depends on whether or not the administration will work with Congress. Right now, they're doing everything by executive order, which is fine for the short run, but the next time there's a change of power, those can all be undone. That happened after President Trump's President Biden undid most of his positive reforms his first day in office. Mm-hmm. It takes Congress to codify them, and we're working as hard as we can to convince those two branches to work together, but Congress doesn't want to do anything that might possibly be controversial with an election coming up, and that makes things very difficult.
So I know we were talking about the Illinois regulation, and I do agree federalism. Look, states can act as states are want to act, and then let the market figure it out. And so is there an argument that states like Illinois just are sort of a cash cow at this point, and they can essentially, they pay off enough rent seekers, by the way, Rivian, Goshen, to name two of them that I've been after. Are they so powerful now, big states like the state of Illinois, that they can nearly regulate without any concern?
Well, what it'll take is litigation. The Constitution, the federal Constitution, has a supremacy clause where if there's a conflict between federal law and state law, federal law trumps that, except in certain cases. But in order, if Illinois goes and passes a regulation saying, hey, Illinois standards, if it's stricter than federal standard, we're going to go by that one no matter what the feds say, that'll take a lawsuit to resolve, and that can take potentially years. So essentially what Illinois is doing is daring Washington, probably another. So
you saw sort of that happened, though, with California, where California put on those standards for electrical vehicles that are so ginormous and their market's so big that it was going to affect the manufacturing of vehicles elsewhere. And so the feds have stepped in and said that you can't do that. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, it's a very similar dynamic, and it's not just with autos, like you said. Okay. Well, that's good. And so tell us more about the CEI, though. Do you specialize basically on the deregulation front? Yeah, we've been around since 1984. We're D.C.-based, although I live here in Illinois. And, everything we do involves regulation, mostly at the federal level, but
it's gotten so bad that we're expanding our.
Okay. Ryan, I kind of lost you there. All right. Well, he's Ryan Young. He's with the Competitive Enterprise Institute. I want to thank him so much for coming on and just giving us a little bit of an insight as to what they do and talk a little bit about the regulatory environment. And of course, you just heard Illinois doesn't care what the feds do. We're gonna double down and continue our terrible regulations no matter what. And they feel like they've got the businesses held hostages here. And business owners, if you're listening to me right now, you're the key to turning the state around. So time for you to get involved. We'll be right back. This is The Real Story with Jeanne Ives.